Fans of the Horus Heresy and Warhammer 40,000, thank you very much for joining me for a model build and tactics review of the Space Marines Primaris Reivers easy to build miniatures. So this is a 3-pack of miniatures from a new easy to build range for Warhammer 40,000 8th edition. It comes in this packet here, and the pack includes the miniatures, the instructions, a sheet of water slide transfers, Ultramarines only, and an instruction booklet which contains the rules. So instructions and rules. So what I'm going to do in this review is we're going to have a look at these miniatures. I'm going to talk a bit about what I think about these models and the easy to build concept and the fact that they're supplying them in coloured plastic. I'm then going to give some size comparisons, and then I'm going to talk about the tactics for using these guys in your Space Marine forces. Right, so without further ado, let's start by having a look at some of these. Let's start with this guy, which is a squad sergeant. So I guess the first thing to say about these guys is I've modified how they're posed. I've not built them as easy to build models. If you watch my how-to video on assembling these to get better posers, you'll understand why. If you've not seen that, I'll leave a link in the description to it so you may be interested. These are not stock posers, and without some modelling work you won't be able to build them like this out of the pack. However, I'm more of a serious collector and I'm interested in seeing what the potential of the models are. I guess the first thing that strikes you is they come in this dark blue plastic, have equipment modelled onto their armour. They're wearing a version of Mark X armour, however it's been stripped down. So we can see that the abdomen doesn't have a normal armour plating. It's lacking one of the shoulder pauldrons. This shoulder pauldron appears to have been lightened with some cutouts. It doesn't have the same heavy armouring on the top of the power pack that the standard Mark X armour does. It lacks the wide splayed. We've got this much slimmer design on the ankles. This is actually more akin to the original Space Marine model, the LE2 Imperial Space Marine model from 1985. You could say there is a little bit of a nod back to those early days. And clearly as well, they come in this dark blue plastic. Plastic has exactly the same physical properties as the previous grey that we're accustomed to. So just for comparison, that's this colour plastic here. This is an Intercessor Sergeant from the Dark Imperium box set. Look at some of the features. So they have these skull masks with these like side respirators. This guy's a sergeant, he's got an unhelmeted head. I call him Immortan Joe because for me this look is a direct copy of Immortan Joe from the film Mad Max Fury Road. So lightened armour, you got lots of this sort of bundling design under there. 2 grenades strapped onto his chest plate. Lots of equipment pouches, which is a nice feature. They've got these straps tying them onto the legs. Another good feature, suggesting that they're to stop their pouches bouncing as they run forward. So suggesting they're swift moving troops, which they are. They've got a knife holster, which has got no knife in it. And then pistol holster, which is empty as well, which is perfect because both their combat blade and their heavy bolt pistol are drawn. Good attention to detail there, I say. Let's have a look at a second miniature. So this is probably my favourite of the 3 models, and the only one I got into a pose I really liked that much. So what do we see here? So here we've got a helmet, as you can see. So this is kind of like the standard Mark X helmet, but with the skull design on the front of it. Got a very different look to what we were accustomed to with Space Marines. I mean, they look a bit more like chaplains in a way, or perhaps if you're a Heresy era player, Night Lords. They certainly would pass very well as Night Lords, particularly given their weapons as well. These combat blades are in effect short swords with a serrated edge at the back. Lots of familiar marine armour designs like these vents, the belt clasp, more grenades, more equipment pouches, cabling features. Looks good. Details on the, so look at the heavy bolt pistol there. Details on the arms. There you go, some control devices perhaps, or communication devices. Yeah, good. No detail on the underside of the feet, so there's no tread design on there. Let's get another look at the heavy bolt pistol. And that's quite a neat looking weapon. It does look more like a battle pistol as opposed to a sidearm. So yeah, I like the look of that. And let's have a look at the final trooper. He's got his combat blade raised up, ready to strike. Not yet drilled the bolt pistol barrels out, and the reason I've done that is just to show how the model is supplied. The model is supplied with the muzzle brake moulded with the hole in it, so if you want to complete the effect and do the bore, you've only got one bit to drill. So that's actually quite a nice attention to detail. It's always good to see the sculpts that GW putting in these little touches. So I've got a few purity seals flapping around as they do. Yeah, and this trooper is styled very similarly to the others in terms of his general armour design, helmet design and weapons. So they're quite consistent across the three. So yeah, there's a quick overview of models. Right, let's talk about the actual kit, the quality, the assembly, and then the actual poses as well. So the kit quality on these were good. The sprues had very slight mould lines. In terms of a cleanup required, there wasn't much to do. If you've been following my reviews of new Space Marines, the Primaris Marines, I would say these are equivalent to the models of sprue A and F from the Dark Imperium starter set. So that was nice to see. In terms of the push fit assembly, well, I've glued all these together. However, in the process of doing that, I was able to evaluate the push fit system. It worked fine apart from one thing. The backpack on this guy, for some reason, didn't fit properly. And there was about a 0.5 millimeter gap between the pack and his chest when it was on. So I had to cut down the post a bit. I don't know why that was. Maybe there was a mold. It looked clean when I put it together. So maybe there's a mold defect inside of the post hole. But apart from that, they work fine. And with a pair of clippers, and if you're not bothered about cleaning up the mold lines, you could put these together in 5 or 10 minutes. Very easy to do. So yeah, if you're looking for simple models, these tick the box. And the second set of these that are available as well, which is the Intercessor 3-man squad, and that will be a better buy in terms of the poses of the models, because I don't think the poses on these miniatures are particularly good, whereas the Intercessor models look really good, I think. Now let's address the point of the poses. I have to admit I was pretty disappointed with the quality of the posing that the sculptors have done on these models. They have very unnatural and strange positioning, particularly of the legs and the torsos. So let me give you some examples of what this is. So here, this guy has got this very weird striding position is in. It doesn't look natural at all. I don't know, it's weird. It looks like he's kind of about to lift his foot off the floor, but you might expect he would have had a bend around the ball of his foot. It just makes his feet look unnatural. The fact he's got this very wide stance just makes it look weird as well. I mean, just compare him to this sergeant. This sergeant, I think, looks really good and dynamic. You know, and you could imagine a human being in some pose like that. This guy, it looks like he's kind of like got, I don't know, metal rods down the side of his legs that are preventing him bending his knees. I don't like that. I mean, another problem is look at the positioning of the ankles relative to the direction of travel and the body. This ankle here and this foot is bent inwards. You know, if I square that up, and it just doesn't look right. It looks unnatural, to be quite honest. Not very keen on that. I mean, the arms are, the arms are fine. I didn't put any of the arms on the torso as they were supposed to go on. I changed them all around to try and improve their looks. Let's have a look at this guy. So this one's got exactly the same issues with the legs. A bit better here. We've got a bend in the ball of his foot, so it looks a bit more realistic, shall we say, or plausible. However, his feet still don't look lined up correctly for his torso. So he ends up looking very unnatural again. And yeah, I've never had any models in recent times that look quite so stiff and wooden. I mean, his arms are fine. They're all right. The one model out of the set that I actually thought ended up in a decent pose was this guy. And this was actually all right in the end. Although I had to swap the arms around from some of the other ones. I think this guy was actually supposed to have his arms. It looked pretty rubbish, but he actually looks quite good like this, because it actually looks like the weight is on the right part of his body, on his leg. He's got a bit of a bend in this knee. This leg is straight. It looks like that looks like he's bracing him and is, ready to move on this. I thought that was quite good, that one. And putting the other arms on with the pistol held out like that and him aiming down the barrel and this arm held out like that, that one works for me. I think if that was in a normal set of miniatures or any set of miniatures, I'll be happy with that pose. But that's the only one out of the three, and that required conversion work and a bit of ingenuity to achieve it. Yeah, overall, I think these are pretty disappointing in terms of the posability, and I don't understand why they look so poor in effect compared to the other easy to build Intercessor Marine set, which have got poses which, while not quite as dynamic as all of the Dark Imperium starter miniatures you can see in the background, were actually still pretty good. And a mate of mine's painting his up and don't really stick out. They still look decent, good models. These guys though, no. Just let me give you an example of why these poses look so wooden and unreal. So this is a model from Warzone Resurrection by Prodos Games, and this is a resin miniature, so it's a different medium. However, it's a single piece body with separate arms, so it's a very similar conceptual design to those guys. Now look how this trooper is moving on his feet. He looks so much more dynamic, and I can easily imagine a person in that sort of pose. Let's try this one again. Yeah, that looks like a realistic running pose. And what about this guy? So this guy's looks like he's just landing from a powered jump. Yeah, excellent posing on the legs. And in all these Intercessor Marines in the background also are posed well. So it's a bit disappointing on a new model for the Space Marines, a new conceptual model, to get something that I don't really think does the concept the justice they could have done it. Now there is a set of Citadel miniatures, a 10 strong set of these coming out, we've been led to understand. So perhaps those are going to be better in terms of the pose and the general look, and hopefully they won't look quite so wooden. So make of that what you will. That's my personal opinion, but you know, I don't think these are up to the usual quality that we see with Citadel miniatures. Right, now just let me talk about the design. The other issue I have with these Reivers is, while they look good, they're a bit unoriginal for me. Essentially, I just think they're a straight copy of these Martian Banshee line breakers. These are around, I don't know if these have been out a year or so. They've got pistols, they've got blades, they're in a lighter version of armour. This guy's got a jetpack. This guy hasn't got a jetpack, but he's got a backpack. They both have rictus skull masks. They both have stun grenades, and they both cause fear against opponents they're fighting. Now, this guy, the line breakers, have been around for donkey's years. They've been around for ages. I think they went back to the early 2000s. So it just seems to me that conceptually, both in terms of the looks and the rules, Games Workshop has, I don't know, shown a bit of a lack of originality on the design of these as well. I think if we look at the Inceptor Marines, I think have got a really consistent and original feel to them. That, for me, is another mark against these. Let's do some size comparisons. So firstly, we've got a human. This is a Forge World Solar Auxilia Troop Leader. So these guys are big. We've got the big size Primaris characteristics again. I've got a head on him. Let's now take a standard Space Marine. Well, I don't think you could ever call this guy standard Space Marine. This is the Forge World event exclusive miniature of Narek Draeger of the Iron Warriors. I've converted him into an Iron Hands Warrior and a few bits of conversions, but that's an Astartes wearing Artificer armor. Well, he's closer sized to the Primaris. So the Primaris now probably has about half a head on the classic Space Marine configuration. Now let's do a like for like comparison. Here we've got one of the Dark Imperium Intercessor Sergeants. This is from Squad B, and that's a very well proportioned similar size model. This guy's got a little bit of height away because he's got a wide splayed stance, so you can imagine if he was stood upright and he was wearing his helmet, they're bob on in size comparisons. And you know, I mentioned about the less armoured backpack earlier. You can see these armour sections on the upper surface of these cooling vents, and they don't have them on these guys. So that is a nice difference as well in terms of the variation that they're depicting the armour as having in terms of its thickness. What should we do now? Let's do a Space Lord comparison. So here we have Lord Buckethead. He does keep cropping up from time to time, and here he is today. As is befitting of such a distinguished Space Lord, he towers over the Primaris Marine, far taller. He's got a good bucket on them. Finally, let's look at a Astartes Terminator. So this is Forge World's Iron Hands Iron Father miniature, also known as Ortec Moore. So he's got quite a splayed pose, so similar sort of size-wise. You know, if he was stood up straight, be a little bit shorter in terms of the top of his armour, but then he's got all these widgets on. He's got the servo arm, which makes him far taller, and of course he's much bulkier as well. 2 transport spaces, remember. There you go. So there's some size comparisons. I'm not going to go into dreadnoughts and stuff. I've done some really comprehensive size comparisons in my earlier reviews of the Intercessor model. So now you know that the Reivers are the same size as the intercessors, and guys with the phased plasma rifles, you know, those are a good benchmark to go back to and look at. So let's take off our cast of comparisons. And now let's talk about the rules. So my rules reference is this little book. So I haven't got any points to refer to. I've only got the power level. So a Reiver squad has a power level of 4, and that's for 1 Reiver sergeant and 2 Reivers. They have a standard Primaris profile, so move 6, weapon skill ballistic skill of 3+, strength and toughness 4, 2 wounds, attacks, leadership is 7, and a saving throw is 3+. The sergeant adds an additional attack and point of leadership. They're all identically equipped with a heavy bolt pistol, a combat blade, shot grenades, frag grenades and crack grenades. Right, weapon profiles. Just to know, in this book, the English language heavy bolt pistol stat has got an error. This was spotted by a sharp-eyed person in the comments when I did the unboxing review. It says here in the English version AP0, if you check all the other language versions, it's listed as AP-1. And indeed, in the first strike rules, and the profile card you get in that is also -1, so I'm taking that as being incorrect, and I'm going to assume it's an AP of -1. Heavy bolt pistol, so is pistol 1, so you can shoot them at under an inch even when you're in melee. AP of -1 gives them that extra kick. Combat blade, well, this is really good, to be honest, with AP of -1, because each time you fight you get 1 additional attack, so it's like a chainsword without any chainswordiness. It's better than a chainsaw because it's got a -1 save modifier. That doesn't feel right, but that's what it is. And as long as the points are balanced, and I suppose the stats can be what they are, it doesn't feel right though. Right, frag grenade was seen before, as have we had with the crack grenade. The shot grenades, range 6, grenade D3, and then no stats on strength, AP or damage. However, a shot grenade does not inflict damage. Each time a shot grenade hits an enemy, it's then stunned. So all you need to do with these is score a hit. So given that you've got D3 shots and a ballistic skill of 3+, that's pretty likely to happen. You've probably got like a 70-80% chance of being successful with this. And that's without buffing it with characters. And that then means you can't fire Overwatch. You have to subtract any to hit rolls you make for the unit. Additional stun have no effect. Abilities, and they show no fear, that's standard. And then terror troops. Enemy units must subtract 1 from their leadership characteristic if they're within 3 inches of the Reivers. And there are the keywords. Now, so what does that mean then? Well, these are an interesting squad, and as have all the Primaris units thus far, they do bring something tactically new to the Space Marine army. What they allow you to do is you can basically have 1 or 2 of these squads skulking around with a larger unit. It might be an assault unit, it might be a line unit. And what it allows you to do is, it basically, if enemy troops are getting close, you can peekaboo them with these guys and mess up any ability they have to charge effectively, because the penalty to hit rolls applies to all to hit rolls, not just shooting. You can also use them in an aggressive format. So again, if you're moving forward with tactical Marines or any sort of assault orientated Space Marines, put a squad of these guys alongside them and use their shot grenades to stop enemy units overwatching your units, inhibit their accuracy, and also, because their morale effect has a range effect, it doesn't matter if it's a squad that's fighting these or not, as long as they're within 3 inches. The fact that they don't have a jump pack, I think they're designed to support the foot-slogging Marine units. Because they're a supporting unit, you can use them to bolster the capabilities of any other Astartes unit. So yeah, I think they're a really neat idea, and the sort of thing that having maybe 1 squad in a force is well worthwhile. Because you can't increase the squad size, you're taking up a slot in your force which could be filled with a lot more troops. You know, like you could have 10 tactical Marine, other larger units. So you've got to kind of weigh that up. And I see them as being a unit you might want 1 of in an average size force just for those special abilities. Those are my initial thoughts on it. We don't know what the points values are yet. I'm guessing they're probably going to be somewhat more expensive than the standard Intercessor Marine because of all those special abilities they have. What do I think about these? As I've said, I'm disappointed by the poses of the models. Even allowing for the fact that they're easy build, I still think they could have done a better job getting less wooden poses into these models. So that is a shame. I would recommend that if you're interested in these, you're wanting serious collector's miniatures or miniatures that are going to go well alongside your Dark Imperium Primaris Marines, I would wait for the main box set to get released. If, however, you want a model that's very easy to build, they clearly have something to offer, and the quality of the plastic i.e. limited mould lines, is worth considering. One thing I don't like about the blue plastic, which otherwise doesn't really bother me in terms of plastic colour, I don't think, to my eyes, they don't look as good, but these are aimed at younger collectors, people who maybe, you know, don't want to or can't paint very easily for some reason, and in that respect it's a good idea. Although I think the blue plastic is tonally darker than the grey. Let me just show you what I mean by that. And what I found when I was cleaning this guy up, it's harder to actually pick out where just visually a bit harder to pick out where the mould lines are compared to this grey, which is a few shades lighter in terms of the tone. So I don't think it's as good a colour from a point of view of working on your miniatures and cleaning them up. If it was a few shades lighter, I think that would help. And you know, I've heard a number of comments so far about these guys in the blue, and the general opinion seems to be at the moment that these are too dark for ultramarines as well. Yeah, I won't be buying any more of these easy build miniatures unless there's a really, really good reason for it. I bought these as a bit of a test. You know, I'm a fairly serious collector. I like to do the modelling on my miniatures. I don't mind spending the time to do the trickier models. But, you know, let's remember, I think these are aimed at young people, get them into the hobby, and for that, you know, you've got to give Games Workshop credit. It's a good idea, and that's one of the things that they are challenged to do as a business. They need to build their customer base up at the younger end. Their customer demographics show that their core customers are in anything from like their mid-20s onwards. They don't have as much footprint in the younger years at the moment, so that's something to bear in mind. These say it's 12 plus to build. I think that's ridiculous. I could give these to my 9-year-old son and put them together. I was building Airfix kits at the age of 7 or 8, and they were far more difficult to build than these. So, you know, if you're kind of thinking about getting these for some younger children, depending on their ability, I think the 12 plus guidance on these is quite over the top from an experienced modeler point of view. Anyway, that's a lot to say about just 3 models. These miniatures are more than just reviewing 3 miniatures, because they touch on a whole load of other things that Games Workshop is attempting to do. So bearing all that in mind, I'll be very interested to hear what your thoughts are about these models and what they represent in terms of what Games Workshop is doing at the moment. So other than that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.